Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Welcome along to Budapest for the latest round of the AOR F1 Championship as we reach one of the Eastern European outposts of the sport for the Hungarian Grand Prix. And after 11 rounds of the championship, Tyrrell Schnitzel's rampaging path to a second title continues. But first of all, we're at a track where some of the famous names of Formula 1 have taken their first wins and went on to be Formula 1 champions, including the likes of Fernando Alonso, Damon Hill and Jenson Button. And joining me in the commentary box once again will be Andy Campbell, who will be introducing to you shortly. Now, in terms of the last race here, it was Floris Widgets who took pole position, a notable esports driver, but it was Tyrrell Schnitzel who took the victory, I do believe. But quick look at the 4.3 kilometers Hungarian circuit. 14 corners, Monaco without walls, it is infamously known as. The exit out of turn 14 will be key to the battles in terms of attack and defense down to turn 1 and up to turn 3. Only the one DRS zone on this particular track. Single file for the most part through sectors 2 and 3. It is a 35 lap race here today at the Hungaroring, with a race distance of around 153 kilometers. And well, for some reason my mic just suddenly shot a really loud noise in my ears, so hopefully you won't do that too many times again. But the tyre choice, exactly the same as Germany last week, the middle range of Pirelli rubber. And will we get some wet weather action? We don't get that too often at Hungary, but you never know with this particular game. But before we get to the usual 18-minute qualifying session, we will have a quick look at the championship standings. And well, only one driver to talk about. Yes, another victory, an 8th win from 11 races. Tyrrell Schnitzel, well, he is on his way to a second title. A massive advantage to Michael, who has left the league for the PC. So really the gap you should be looking at is the speed bar is in 3rd. Casper, with an excellent podium last week, put him up to 4th. Stay Frosty in 5th. And Danny MG has gained 7 places in the standings since joining the league. Now moving up to 6th in the championship at the expense of Jim Roydabao Asnar, with tactician RCU Golf keeping their 9th and 10th positions in the standings. And it's a similar story in terms of the Silver Arrows, but now with a significant advantage in the Constructors' Championship. Toro Rosso and Alfa Romeo continuing their private battle over 3rd place. McLaren really improving of late thanks to Stay Frosty's recent run of form, but the efforts of Dan MG raising Renault to the highest position in the standings so far, 6th position in the standings ahead of Red Bull, with Racing Points and Haas moving further away from Ferrari, who threatened to be cut adrift at the bottom in terms of that race to avoid the infamous wooden spoon. Well, he's been waiting very patiently. He's had a bit of goulash in Budapest, where this track is located northeast of the beautiful city, which I would recommend visiting, having been there myself. But Andy, well, amazing race in real life sport of F1 Ola. Will we get something similar here at the Hungaroring?
Yeah, thank you very much. See ya indeed. Hello, welcome everybody along to the latest round here of the Apex Online Racing Season 18. We are at the Hungaroring in Budapest. The Monaco without the barriers is how a lot of people describe this place, and it's definitely one of those tracks that normally in real life But the question remains, and it has been the same nearly every week, who can stop the reigning and defending champion? Who can stop the Silver Arrows? Who can stop TRL Schnitzel?
Well, that is indeed a very important question, Andy, and seemingly we've had a few occasions where he has been stopped. The likes of Michael Speedbari and Stay Frosty 4 different winners in this particular division this season, but there are a few drivers in this particular league who may threaten for a victory. Casper certainly has come close. He got pole position last time out in Germany, but didn't quite have the speed or the strategy. Tyrrell coming from 13th on the grid to win the race last time out, which was absolutely incredible. We have 14 drivers out there today, and we have some debuts today. Lamaquina making his debut for Ferrari. Not sure what you know about Lamaquina, Andy, but I think he has raced in AOR before in some of the lower tiers.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know too much about either of our new drivers. Unfortunately, the only thing I can say is, looking at the usernames, is Fabi in the Haas is obviously part of VP Gaming. That's about the only thing I know, unfortunately. I don't know too much about either of them, but it is good to see those seats being filled up. Although we are a bit short on drivers here again tonight, a few people missing, probably too overwhelmed by what's happened in the Brazilian race that we've just witnessed. But we're still going to be looking on for a really, really good race here. And it's a good chance for people to pick up points again as well, since there is a smaller number of drivers here, 14 on the grid at the moment, and it is a chance for people to pick up points, and Ferrari especially. Now R2's got himself a new teammate after his other teammate left earlier on in the season. It now means Ferrari have a chance, if they've got good pace, to try and get off of that bottom position in the championship, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes, well, I think LR2 has been pretty much holding Ferrari by himself. VSR Wayne was driving for them earlier in the season, so some welcome reinforcements for the Scuderia as they attempt to get off that wooden spoon position, which they've pretty much occupied since the start of the season. So VP Fabi, he's the other debutant in AOR F1 today in PS4. They did actually join the league a few weeks ago and could have taken part in some rounds, but didn't actually make their start until tonight, of course. So Tyrrell Schnitzel out on an out lap, and he's going to be featured in our hot lap, so we'll keep an eye on him as he goes through Sector 3. Let's just have a quick look at another driver going. Jim Roy, absent last week, he's dropped a few places in the championship, was threatening to get the top 5 of the championship. Like McQueen, 119.073 on the mediums. Well, we'll discuss the tyre strategy shortly after Tyrrell Schnitzel does his hot lap. He was selected to be the hot lap recipient today, a 116.563 for Hugh Golf as the medium times go in. Now, this is interesting. We seem to be seeing medium runs straight away, but take it away, Andy. It's Tyrrell Schnitzel does a lap of the Hungaroring.
Yes, here comes the reigning champion across the line. DRS wide open down towards turn number 1. Not a bit tighter, but not as wide open as it used to be back in the day. Nice and easy through the apex. DRS open again down towards what is turn number 2. Tricky braking zone here. You can see it's downhill slightly. It's cambered to the inside as well. Just got to be careful on the way through the curve of turn 3, completely flat out as Jim Roy goes into provisional pole with 15.7. Turn 4, oh, that's a fast corner all the time. 150 miles an hour. Got to be careful. There's going to be a lot of warnings over there through the curve of turn 5 and up to the chicane at the top of the hill. Turn 6, 7, got to be careful you don't use too much curb. Schnitzel using a bit of grass there on the outside as well. Through turns 8 and 9, and then coming up towards the end of sector 2 through turn 10. Hugh Golf gets out of the way through the fast part of turn number 11 there, 50 or 140 miles an hour on the brakes down towards turn 13 and 14 towards the end of the lap now, and a tricky braking zone for 13 as well. Just takes forever to get on the power through here. It's got to be so patient. Up towards the line, turn 14. Don't turn in too quick or you'll end up taking your wheel off from the pit wall on the inside there. DRS open across the line, and Schnitzel goes into P3 on the medium compound tyres. Only 5 times down, and the top 2, R2 and Jim Roy, are on the soft compound tyres. And I have just been given a little word, a wee dicky bird in my ear from down in pit lane. Light rain for the race, so we might actually see some soft compound tyres.
Yes, well, from what we hear, it's going to be light rain at least to start the race. So I think, unlike a lot of the other tiers we've seen so far, we are going to see heavy use of the soft compound, which, although it's an excellent tyre, of course, over one lap, it burns off very quickly because of the tyre temperatures you usually get at Hungary in a dry race, which affect the tyre wear, of course. But so this explains why the medium runs are being done now to get a feel for the circuit. LR2 setting the pace of 1:15.482. So the ultimate pace of these soft tyres, it's around 2 seconds faster than the hard compound, just to give you a reference, and about 1.3 seconds faster than the mediums. So I think we could well be going into the 1 minute 14s. Would you say, Andy, that would be a reasonable prediction at this point?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if it was going to be a dry race, it was expected that most people would qualify on the mediums with around about a 1:15.5 being the pole position time. But that rains for the start of the race, at least especially, throws that completely out of the window. So cars can go for it on the soft compound tyres. They don't last the hugest amount of time, the soft compound. So we might see them now with the rain expected, and I would expect us to certainly be on a very low 1:15, if not dipping into the 1 minute 14s come the end of the session. But it's not the longest track in the world. I mean, it's not the shortest either, 4.3 kilometres round. Fastest lap time in terms of a race lap record in real life was Max Verstappen this year, a 1:17.1. Obviously qualifying is always going to be much quicker than that. But yeah, I would expect to see maybe into the 1:14s, but it's certainly a low 15, and we'll see a lot more soft compound tyres for qualifying before the end of the race. Normal dry strategy would be medium to hard, anywhere between lap 10 to 20, but the rain is obviously going to make things a little bit different in the race.
Well, reasonable pace from one of the debutants. Fabi only a few tenths off TRL Schnitzel, and that is not bad going on the medium compound. They're doing multiple runs on those medium tyres just to try and get their times down. So at the moment, it's LR2 leads the way with 1:15.482, Jim Roy P2, and then Casper in P3. So just under a second covering the top 5. But it's a lot of these times clearly not representative so far. It looks like there's been a few invalidations so far. Lee Findlay out there had an excellent result, Andy, last week, didn't he? A real return to form for Lee Findlay.
Yeah, absolutely. P6 in Germany showing some of the pace that we know the Scotsman is capable of. He is still in the process of that transition from the pad to the wheel. He only properly moved over full time to the wheel about a month or two ago, so he's still in that transitional phase at the moment with that, but he's starting to show the pace I certainly know he's capable of. I'm very, very used to watching races where Lee came up from F2 when I was commentating on over the last 2 seasons, so he's someone I know very well. And I'm definitely expecting to see much more pace coming from him the more that he just starts to feel more comfortable using the wheel as time goes by. Germany will certainly have given him a very good confidence boost that he can stick with things here in the top tier in AOR, and I'm hoping to see more points paying positions for him moving forward. He certainly needs to help the team out. His teammate's not here tonight, Speed Barry, who has been by far and away, in my opinion, the standout performer away from Schnitzel this season. His form has been fantastic. He's had, just quickly looking at it here, he's had 5 podiums, 3 third positions, a second and a first in France at the Circuit de Paul Ricard, and he's definitely been a standout performer for his first full season in top tier.
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, Speedbar not here this evening. But yeah, I mean that was, I think you would agree, Andy, the race of the season so far. France, a thrilling three-way fight between Schnitzel, Blizzard and Speedbar in the closing stage of the race. Just had a bit of everything. As Lam McQueen goes faster than his teammate over 1:15.296. Looks going to keep following board. Oh, bit of a back-end slide, almost a rallycross style around the final corner for Lee Finney. That wouldn't have helped with his traction, and yeah, may have been validated there by the looks of it. Now, let's talk about turn 4, Andy, because turn 4 is a very tricky corner. As we see LR2 heading up to it, uphill, almost a blind corner, especially if you're using cockpit mode. So easy to cut the inside, but then if you don't cut that, you can get a warning by getting onto the outside, because they're very strict on the track limits of the exit of turn 4.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very fast corner indeed. We are going to see most warnings picked up through here tonight. Lee Finlay just coming through. You can see you go through it, you're taking the apex at around about 150 miles an hour in 6th gear. Most drivers are staying in 7th, dropping down to 6th to take the corner. But if you turn in just a fraction too early at that speed, you're going to end up taking all of the curb away and therefore get the warning. And if you can't turn in too late, you're going to run wide on the exit, which is then going to cost you time and can also still pick you up a penalty, as you're mentioning there as well. So it's a very, very tricky corner, and it's definitely going to be the one that the drivers need to keep a lookout for tonight in terms of avoiding warnings. The other one will be the chicane at the top of the hill, turns 6 and 7. If you get a little bit greedy on those curbs, not only will they spit you out sometimes, but they will also give you a warning or possibly a penalty if you picked up warnings as well. And down into turn 12, some people get a little bit aggressive on the curbing on the inside, and the stewards just decide nope, we're not having any of that. So there's a few places, but turn 4 will definitely be the hot spot for that this evening.
Yes, as we run right with RCU Golf in the racing point. A lovely section of course there, so it's quite a smooth run from the driver so far. Is currently P10 in the championship standings. He's been there for a while. He's had some good results this season. A 4th place at Baku being the absolute highlight, of course, and an excellent race there. Across the line, Hugh Golf will go P5. So the times are beginning to tighten up a little bit. T.R. Snitzel on an outlap, as is Casper's back in the pits, and the Blizzard is out there. Let's have a look at Blizzard. Oh, big slide as we switch him. He's gone completely wide at turn 14, and that was almost perfect timing on my part to switch to him just then. Not that Blizzard will thank me for it, but that's a lap ruin for Blizzard. But he did well to stop that. He took so much speed into that corner, and T.R. Snitzel just behind him. I think the Renault will have to get out of the way, so Snitzel he won't get too much of a tow there. Heading through sector 1 then. Turn 3 seems to last forever as you go through it, or turn 2 I should say, and then it's flat out through turn 3, and then it's certainly a crunching moment as you try and judge your braking point for turn 4, but T.R. Snitzel, as you would expect, almost perfect entry through there, although runs very wide out of 5, and I'm not sure he may have got an invalidation there as he goes through the chicane, which is quite tricky to navigate. Very easy to get a warning there if you take a little bit too much speed, and when you get the chicane wrong, Andy, you lose so much time. You can lose several tenths there with an incorrect line through there.
Yeah, absolutely, you do. Those sausage curbs just completely throw the car up in the air and you just lose all traction. So it is one where you need to be careful, but you can make a lot of time up through there as well. If you nail it perfectly, you can make a few temps up. I was just riding on board with one of our new drivers, Fabi, in the Haas car there. Just put himself up at the P2 behind our other new start in McQueen in the Ferrari. 14 thousandths of a second down as Schnitzel shows his pace in a 15.0, so there we go. But it was a very nice lap from the Haas driver, Fabi, looking very clean and tidy, very smooth with a throttle application as well, so he could be one to watch out for if that transitions into race pace as well, because it looks like he's a very smooth driver, and that's usually very good for when it comes to tyre management as well, so hopefully that transitions for him, and that could be a really good addition to the league as well.
Well, we saw La McQueen and Fabi earlier on the mediums not being too far behind Snitzel in terms of outright pace, and they're just a couple of tenths off in terms of their best time. So this is a really reasonable return as Snitzel does a bit of rallycross to try and get back to the pits in time. He'll be a bit tight, but I think he'll be okay to be again. Stay Frosty out on track. There's no one else really out there at the moment in terms of outlaps, so everyone just sort of gathering themselves for a final run. They get plenty of soft boots to use here at the Hungaroring. Certainly a track I've considered visiting. I just haven't really been able to have the time off to go out there, so I'm going to go to Spain again next year, but from what I hear, the atmosphere is usually really fun at the Hungaroring, even if you don't see too many overtakes. But of course the Max Verstappen Orange Army always out in force there, and strangely since the Hakkinen days, loads of Finnish fans as well, even though mostly Bottas fans these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that bit from a few people who have gone to Hungary. The Finnish fans are always out in force for that race, and it makes for quite an atmosphere sometimes up on top of the hill, and plenty of vodka usually used, but obviously we're only talking about hype energy drinks here tonight, of course. But it's definitely one of those tracks. Very beautiful city, Budapest as well, the Danube River running right through the middle of it as well, of course. So yeah, it's definitely one that a lot of people do say you should go to, and in terms of pricing isn't too bad either, to what I've seen too. So always good weather normally as well. I mean, they didn't have a wet race in Hungary from when it came here in 1986 until Jenson Button's victory in 2006, so 20 years before we've seen any rain here at this track in real life, so you're normally guaranteed some sort of sunshine. Yeah,
so well, Jenson Button's victory in 2006, certainly one of my favourite all-time F1 moments. Iconic camera shot of him with his bulging eyes from the sheer joy of winning his first race. And a few years later he would of course win the championship for Brawn, which no one expected going into that season, of course. And who knows, maybe someone will decide, well, we've got new regulation 2021, let's just spend big and try and get into the top 3. But as Stave Frosty carries on, runs a little bit wide out of turn 5. turn 10 I should say. It's in sector 3. Looks like a fairly controlled lap from Stay Frosty, only P9 at the moment for the Silverstone race winner from this season. Around the final corner he goes. Apart from Blizzard, we've not seen too many dramas on the final corner. Such a vital corner to get the traction down. P5 then for Stay Frosty at the moment, and that will be the end of his cover. Although he may have fueled for 2 runs, but the trouble is, unlike previous games, Andy, where you could fuel for multiple runs, you're at a disadvantage in these later games because, of course, you can only use the full battery for 1 lap, and it's difficult to recharge it over the following lap.
Yeah, definitely. So the battery is obviously such a big tool for the drivers to use. Can give up to around, I think it's 140 extra horsepower at any given time, but you do need to manage it very, very well. Very close at the moment now, all the way down to 11th for Jim Roy, 6 times covering the field, make that 8 times down to 12 as Alex has just gone across the line as well. I'm watching Lee Finlay coming through the final corner here, only driver not to set a lap time at the moment, and he puts himself all the way up into 4th position there with a 15.3, 2 times down on the pole position time as the checkered flag comes out. So now anybody that's not crossed over a line has missed out. Schnitzel's not long started a lap. Marquina is just coming to the end of a lap there in the Ferrari, and he's certainly not going to have the problem that Leclerc and Vettel had. He does improve, but he's still second, just shy of a 2 times down at the moment. It looks like Nardi Perez has just moved up into 5th, R2's in 6th, so they're finished. Fabi's coming towards the end of a lap just now. He's up on sector 2 at the moment, is the Haas driver, and we'll see if he can improve any further in this final couple of corners.
Yeah, just going to have a quick look at Jim Royce here. He is. No, he's in sector 2, and I think Snitzel's behind him. So let's have a look at Fabi. No, Fabi pits. I think he must have validated.
Blizzard P3 though.
Yeah, Blizzard P3 from out of nowhere, so that's pretty good. Let's have a look at Jim Roy. Jim Roy in sector 3. Cyril Snitzel looking like it. No, he's actually a bit further ahead. So here comes Cyril Snitzel. Are you going to carry on? Yes, Cyril Snitzel around the final corner. Fabi in P4. He'll be pretty happy with that. Here comes Cyril Snitzel then. Is this going to be yet another pole for the reigning champion? He improves into the 14s. He goes. But let's see what Jim Roy can do. He's very much capable of challenging. And yeah, P2 for Jim Roy, but nowhere near the benchmark set by Tyrrell Snitzel, who takes it by nearly half a second. So let's just have a look at the lap times. Was anyone else in the 14s? No. So Tyrrell Snitzel, the only driver in the 1 minute 14s. Well, you said it last week, running out of superlatives to use to describe Snitzel's season, and yet again another example of that. At a track where qualifying is almost as important as a track like Monaco, and he's got the best seat in the house for the start of the race and won't have to deal with any of the spray, presuming he gets a good start.
Yeah, I don't know, you still lost you. But yeah, Schnitzel just unbelievable once again, 4 times clear of anybody else. Jim Roy though with a good lap, and he certainly needed that, but after the poor qualifying last week from the defending champion, comes back with a massive statement, puts himself into pole position here for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Fantastic lap from the Mercedes driver.
So Tyrrell Snitzel takes pole position then by just over 4/10 seconds from Williams Jim Roy, the season 16 runner-up. Lan McQueen with a very impressive first qualifying in AOR Tier 1 P3 ahead of Blizzard in P4. Fabi, he'll be very delighted with a row-free start for the race. Lee Finlay continuing to impress as he adjusts to the wheel. P6, Jim Nardi Perez P7, LR2 completing an excellent session for Verizon P8, Tactician P9, and his fellow Alfa Romeo teammate joining him on the 5th row. And then outside the top 10 we have Stay Frosty, Hugh Golf, Daniel Alves, and the veteran Alex rounding up the grid. So quite an interesting qualifying session there. So we see some footage from the Formula 2 race earlier today. So, well, it looks like we could be set up for another Schnitzel masterclass, Andy, but can any of the drivers behind them threaten him in the sort of conditions we're going to start the race with?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, some drivers are, of course, better in wet conditions than others. That's why we obviously have drivers who, over the years, have been known as wet weather meisters, so to speak, in previous years. So it'll be interesting to see who can come through. But we know Schnitzel is good in these conditions as well. So it will definitely make for an interesting race indeed. He is obviously the one to beat. I mean, obviously we've been talking about the gap that he's got at the top of the championship. If we ignore Michael, who's in second because he's no longer in the league, he's on off to PC. It's 138 points to Speed Barry, who is not here tonight. So the next nearest driver who is here is Casper, 154 points down. That is just over 6 race victories that the young Dutchman is down on Schnitzel, and it shows you just how dominating the Mercedes driver has been. He's been first or second every race so far, and it would be a very, very long shot bet if you were to bet on anything other than the Austrian being first or second here tonight as well.
I mean, not sure anyone will be betting against Schnitzel at the moment, but here we go then. Intermediate conditions to start this particular race. We're not sure if it's going to be light rain for the entire race, but we may get some dry running later on. But 35 laps in conditions like this will be tricky, and I think some of the times we saw in the race, you would imagine, Andy, would be compromised by having a little bit more of a wet setup in mind for the start of this race. So we may not have seen the ultimate pace from the likes of Schnitzel and Jim Roy from that session.
No, definitely not. And the way I'm reading the message that we got through about the weather, light rain race is how it was actually worded to us, makes me think it's going to be this way for the majority of the race, I would feel, in that wording. So it could be a completely wet race all the way through. And if it is, then it's going to be a case of who manages the intermediate tyres as best as possible. You don't want to wear them out too quickly, because then you'll have to make an extra pit stop possibly towards the end of the race. If it does dry out, then when do you come in for dry weather tyres? Where is that crossover point to allow you to come in, put on a set of slick tyres and make sure that you're not going to go sliding off the track and into the walls? Because although it's seen as Monaco, they say without the walls, the barriers are still relatively close in some areas of the track. Very easy to make mistakes, and one of those tracks that is just...
Yes, and if Jim Roy is going to have any chance, based on the pace we saw in qualifying, if he's going to have any chance of winning this race, he's going to have to try and get a better start to Schnitzel and try and overtake him at turn 1, at least to give the reigning champion something to think about. If Lam McQueen are just there, and they're trying to desperately get some temperature into their tyres, but tyre temperatures are always more tricky to get in these wet conditions, of course, with the cooler track caused by the surface water. But the grid now begins to form for 35 laps of the AOR F1 Hungarian Grand Prix on PS4. It should be a very interesting watch, and best of luck to Lam McQueen and Fabi as they prepare to have their first race in anger here in the top tier on PS4. I was going to say PS1, but that would have been very nostalgic of me.
That would have been a long time ago, that was.
Yes, but Tyrrell Schnitzel then getting the best view there. Here we go then, the 5 red lights here to start this Hungarian Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go, and it looks like a decent start from Jim Roy on the left-hand side. There is a bit more grip there, and yes, they're going to go side by side into turn 1, but Schnitzel getting the power down on the gears. Watch out for La McQueen just behind. Blizzard trying to keep the challenge going then. Oh, there's slight touch wheel banging between the Mercedes and the Red Bull. Mostly looks like a pretty clean start so far. Schnitzel will lead them into turn 2, but he goes very, very deep into the corner. That will allow Jim Roy to come back at him, but he'll have the inside for turn 3 as they roll up to turn 4 for the first time. One of my favourite camera shots in the game. Tyrrell Schnitzel, Jim Roy, Blizzard has trying to overtake round the outside of La McQueen. What an overtake by Blizzard into turn 4. That was super brave in the dry, let alone into conditions like this. So up to P3 he goes. And Schnitzel, well, he had a real challenge on his hands from Jim Roy at the start of the race, but he is now settled in as the Hugh Golf gets overtaken rather by Daniel Alves. They're having a bit of a ding-dong session there, but we're going to keep an eye on the leaders just for a few more moments before we focus our attention. Fabi has dropped down to P6, Lee Finney up to P5. Jim Nardi Perez trying to get behind the Haas driver. The Haas driver seems to be struggling a little bit as several drivers, including La McQueen and Lee Finney, run wide up ahead. But that was a pretty clean start. Any damage do you see, Andy, down the field?
Nothing at all. That was probably one of the cleanest starts I've seen all season. Not a single bit of contact that I could make out that was worthy of talking about. Blizzard with that lovely move on the outside of turn 4, just side by side the whole way up with La McQueen, and the Ferrari just had to back out of it, or it was just going to be the wrong thing to do to get through into the position. So nicely done from Blizzard. Remember, he had his best result in France in changeable conditions as well, so he does seem to enjoy these kind of conditions, possibly does the Renault driver. And with his teammate Danny not here, he needs a good result as well. First lap done. Stay Frosty's the biggest gainer, up to 9th from 11th. Tactician down to 11th from 9th. So they're the big movers on that opening lap. Only the 2 places gained and lost between them. But the others have moved up 1 and down 1. But apart from that, it's pretty much as you were as the drivers feel out the conditions here in the opening laps.
Yes, they've They certainly have done that, and well, we are here. We are hearing just to break from the action for just a brief moment that Sainz has got the podium in the Brazilian Grand Prix, but we'll have to have a read of that in a bit. But let's continue the action. Stay Frosty, as Andy mentioned, moving up 2 places from the start of the race, and he's got a pretty decent view of the midfield scrap up ahead, which is often the highlight of the race. It's from many league races I've commentated at this particular track, what often happens is we get quite a field spread between the top 3, but then all the action, Constantine is together for the midfield. So, and that's up ahead, Dimnali Perez trying to make a move once again on the Haas of Fabi, who's dropped out of a second to Lee Finley. No DRS, of course, in these light rain conditions. We may see some of that later on. So it's going to make it a bit trickier to overtake without the aid of that wing opening it. And it's now a second gap between Snitzel and Jim Roy. But Jim Roy is keeping the rain champion on at the moment, but I think we're about to see an overtake attempt from Nardi Perez. Is he brave enough to go late on the brakes into turn 1? No, not quite close enough to go for it sensibly. And down the orders or anything else going on. Daniel Alves through turn 1. No, it's kind of single file at the moment. LR2 definitely struggling a little bit. And here comes Steve Frosty actually. He may think about a move into turn 2, but no, not quite close enough. But yeah, so Fabi and R2, certainly the 2 drivers who look to be struggling the most in these conditions at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. So everybody trying to keep it as on the track as much as possible. But Fabi can imagine to hold position off, but he is dropping away from the top 5 and getting a bit of a train behind him. I can confirm what you were just saying. Hamilton has been handed a 5-second penalty, drops him to 7th, meaning Carlos Sainz at the moment has picked up his debut podium in F1, but there is still investigations going on in regards to DRS usage under double yellow flags when Bottas crashed out, so that could still change further. At the moment, Hamilton down to 7th and Sainz up to a very well-deserved P3 from the back of the grid. That's the real life side of things. Back to tonight's action though, and well, Schnitzel already a 2.5 clear from Jim Roy, who's got a 2.5 on Blizzard. So the top 2 just slowly pulling a little bit of a gap on the rest of the field at the moment, just trying to make sure they're out of distance in case it does dry up later on into this race. They want to make sure they've got gaps to be able to put in good laps and get into the pits for dry weather tyres. Blizzard trying to hold on to them and pull away from the Ferrari of La Maquina in 4th, who's got Lee Finley in 5th. Fabi is a 2.5 down in 6th. He's getting dropped off from the top 5, as I say. He's got Nardi Perez, R2, Stay Frosty, Casper, Tactician, Hugolf and Daniel Alves all pretty much in a line. Alex is just about holding on to the back of him at the moment. Still 14 drivers running at this early stage, and still no other changes in the order from when I mentioned the end of lap 1. It's they are really taking it easy here. They're just wanting to make sure they don't take any risks. It's a long race at 35 laps. There's no point in trying anything silly. There's plenty of opportunity for points here.
Yes, and Fabi struggling with the exit of turn 4, and that gave Nardi Perez half a sniff at making a move, but it's pretty much single file going through sector 2 and sector 3, unless someone makes a major mistake, as Nardi Perez crashes over the chicane. That wouldn't have done his suspension any good, but in terms of the tyre management, they're going to have to think about that a little bit. If this stays light rain the whole race, they're going to have to stretch out for a one set of inters to half distance and then make a pit stop. So they're not going to be able to attack too much early on. It'll be a bit easier on the second sim with the fuel burning off. As it's a big mistake from Steve Frosty, and he's just lost a position to Casper. I'm not sure if he hit something or he got hit from behind, but anyway, he's down to P10. We'll go back to Nardi Perez, because that looks like the closest battle ahead of these guys. As Snitzel continues to set faster laps, so I don't know if that's a hint that the conditions are getting better, or is it just a fuel burning off. But is Nardi Perez getting closer, or is it more likely to be a battle behind them? Let's just have a look quickly. Yeah, Steve Frosty's very close to the Alfa Romeo. He's going to go for a move. No, he will not. So quite a train, but whatever happens, Fabi and Nardi Perez have actually broken away from LR2 just a little bit, so the train kind of fragmenting just a tad at this stage. So your race order at the moment then: Tyrrell Snitzel, Williams, Jim Roy, Sierra Blizzard, who had that stunning move on Lama Queen on lap 1 to get into the podium positions, and then Lee Finley in 5th, Fabi in 6th, Jim Nardi Perez in 7th, LR2 in 8th, Casper in 9th, and Steve Frosty making up top 10. Everyone on the same tyres as it stands.
Yeah, that bit of Stay Frosty losing out to Casper, I just caught the end of that myself, and it looks like Stay Frosty just gently nudged into the back of the Ferrari of R2. It just meant he ran wide into turn 12, and that allowed the Alfa Romeo up the inside to steal 9th position. Looks like the McLaren, in terms of visible damage, has picked up nothing out of that slight bump. It's just dropped him offline and dropped him a position, so he'll be happy at that if that is the case to carry on. Schnitzel's now nearly got a 3-second gap up in the lead over Williams. Jim Roy with Blizzard a second and a half down in third, and he's just slowly starting to eke the gap out in front there. Fabi is still holding up Nardi Perez, and he's doing a pretty fine job at the moment here in his debut race in the top tier as well, holding off Nardi Perez, who we know is a quick driver on his day as well, and someone who's got plenty of experience, part of the Williams Gym esports team too. So he's doing a really good job as the Haas driver at the moment, Fabi, to hold up Nardi Perez. He goes for a late move up the inside. He's going to go and get it done. Fabi's going to pull back through. That was a late lunge from Nardi Perez up the inside. He doesn't get the move done there. Thought he was about to career into the back of the Haas.
A move that screamed of frustration from the Red Bull driver, because he's losing so much time. He's really losing ground to the 3 drivers ahead of Fabi, who are all fighting over a podium at the moment. Nose to tail between Blizzard, Lamaquina and Lee Finley at the moment. So Nardi Perez knows if he can get past Fabi and then get onto the back of Lee Finley, given that we may see some penalty in the race, he's got a chance of podium. But the longer he stays behind Fabi, who just doesn't seem to have the race pace at the moment compared to the drivers in front of him in these interconditions. So Casper was thinking about a move on LR2, but couldn't quite get close enough, lacking a bit of straight line speed. As we mentioned, no DRS in these wet conditions. So Dim Nardi, well, he's clearly is quicker than the Haas ahead of him at the moment. Oh my goodness, Fabi goes miles wide, really struggling again. We're only on lap 6, and well, his tyres are definitely not going to get to half distance at this rate.
No, definitely not, indeed. And they need to try and keep an eye on the tyre life, because they do need to go quite a wee bit into this race. You can see Lee Finley's not too far off the back of Lamaquina as well, and they've both caught up to the back of Blizzard too, so they're starting to reel the Renault driver in too, as they start to fall further and further away from the top two. So who knows, we could see a Ferrari on the podium taking the best result of the season in Lamaquina's debut race. Who knows? There's plenty of possibilities here tonight, but we are only on lap 7 of 35. Still a very long way to go in this race, and we've still got plenty of opportunities for people to try and make some moves. I get the feeling if Nardi Perez can get by on Fabi and make a clean move, he might just be able to pull away, because he's able to just stick to the back of that Haas like glue, and even when he does drop off, he pulls that gap back very, very quickly. Makes me feel that Red Bull's got a bit more pace at this point in the race than the Haas up ahead, and he's trying to find the right place to make a move cleanly and just get through and up into 6th position. He could then make a move onto Lee Finley, who's really taken liberties with the chicane track limits there, that's for sure. That was any further off the track, he was in Romania.
Yes, well, I think at this rate we may see some penalties. We haven't seen many penalties so far, and I think most of those have been right down the order. I don't believe any of the top 5 have penalties just yet, but I may have missed those. But we'll check those in a little while. But we'll concentrate on the racing action for the time being. Lamaquina very gamely holding onto the back of Blizzard, and we're going to switch between this battle and the battle for P3 just to see what happens. Try and make sure we don't miss any overtakes, because at the moment, until the tyres really wear off, it's going to be somewhat of a stalemate as long as people don't make major mistakes. Good exit from Blizzard, so that's going to make life difficult for Lamaquina to make a move. Quite a gap now between the top 2 to Blizzard now. Will Lamaquina have a think about a move? He's very close, but not close enough. Nardi Perez then? No, he's not close enough either. So going further back than that, Dan Alves, can he have a move on Hugh Golf? No, definitely not for the time being. So let's focus our attention on the battle for 3rd position, which is between Blizzard, Lamaquina and Lee Finley. And well, Lee Finley certainly continuing to impress. He had a difficult start to the season. As you mentioned, Andy, the transition to the wheel, but he seems to be getting better and better each race. As Hugh Golf picks up a 3-second time penalty. Seem to have lost Andy for a second. So hopefully he'll...
I'm still here.
Oh, there you go. I'm not sure if you saw it on your mic, but I did lead you in. But anyway, I'll feed you in a second. Lamaquina continues his pursuit of Blizzard. A very impressive first 8 laps in AOR Tier 1, as in the background, Nardi Perez all over the back of the Haas, but just can't find a way through. He's got to try and force Fabi into a mistake at turn 14, which in all aspects is the most important corner on the track in terms of attack and defence, because if you can't get the power down or the traction down in the final corner, doesn't matter how much straight line speed you've got, you'll just lose too much time and you'll get swept past.
Yeah, absolutely. Indeed, Daniel Alves has just sneaked by Hugo off there, got better traction out of 12. I had the move done before turn 13, so McLaren up into 12th position, but they're being very careful, as I say, in these opening stages, so just they don't want to take any chances. A wing off at this stage and it's going to be race over. I mean, the full field is still covered by 18 seconds from first to fourth. It's a Mercedes full field sandwich at the moment. Schnitzel out in first with Alex in 14th as Blizzard picks up a penalty, so he's the first driver in the top half of the field to have picked up a penalty there. The top two, when I had a look, had no warnings at all, so don't expect to see anything from them any time soon. But good few battles going on, as you say. Third position between Blizzard, La McQueen and Lee Finlay. We've got Fabi holding off Nardi Perez. R2 is just about holding on to the back of him. He's got Casper and Stay Frosty there. They've both dropped off Tactician as well now, so Tactician's in a bit of no man's land nearly. He's going to have the other McLaren of Daniel Alves to deal with shortly. Hugo's not too far off, and Alex just holding on to the back at the moment in 14th position. Still pretty close field, still plenty to go on here at the Hungaroring, but your championship leader is currently serenely and nicely on his way to another victory. What would be his 9th victory of the season if he was to, but it's still a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, we've still got plenty of rounds to go. Belgium next week, which will of course offer a few more overtaking opportunities than we're seeing here today. La McQueen are not quite close enough now. Nardi Perez, this looks a little bit closer than we've seen recently, but it's got the power down, decided not to go for it, but behind, Stay Frosty side by side with Casper. Casper having to go defensive on the inside, but here comes Stay Frosty. Can he come to the inside at 2? He's got half a chance maybe. No, he's going to have to pile in again behind the Alfa Romeo driver. And so Tactician, well, he's kind of certainly dropped off the pace, not in the fight really for points at the moment. But let's have a look at Nardi Perez following. He's got such a well set up car. The fact that he can follow that Haas so closely in these conditions without being affected by the turbulent air coming off the back of that car is very impressive. However, that does indicate to me that he's running more downforce than the Haas ahead, which is why he's having such trouble overtaking him down that main straight.
Yeah, quite possibly. He is able to stick very close, but just through that chicane section there, quite a few of them, R2 especially, drifting wide through the first part of the chicane, having to cut across the second part, probably getting a warning for that one. And it just makes me wonder, are they pushing the tyres just maybe a little bit too much? Are they starting to just drop off ever so slightly in terms of the tread wear on them, just making it tricky? Fabi's run a bit wide through 13 there. He's managed to collect it up nicely to avoid the Red Bull getting through, but there's certainly going to be a bit in terms of tyre wear now. I've seen on one shot Hugo coming through turn 3, drifting his way through turn 3 and managing to keep it together. Now Nardi Perez is a bit closer this time than he was last lap. Does he fancy any moves? No, he doesn't. He's just not close enough down there. I think your presumption might just be right there in terms of him having a bit more wing on board, meaning he's not quite able to get the straight line speed to get by that Haas down into turn 1. And Fabi's doing a great job. He's not having to defend too resolutely at this moment in time. He's just placing the car nicely, keeping it on the racing line. He's going to make that Red Bull go the long way round, no matter where it is that he decides to make a move. But you think, as I said before a few laps ago, if that Red Bull can get by somewhere, he might just start pulling away, because he does look a bit quicker at this stage.
Yes, Fabi's race pace has actually been fairly reasonable. He was losing quite a bit of time to the 3 cars in front of him, but actually now he's only losing like a tenth or so. So it seems like, if anything, Blizzard is holding up La McQueen and Lee Finlay, preventing them from having their ultimate pace. And this is playing beautifully into the hands of Jim Roy up ahead, who himself can't do anything about Schnitzel's pace. But then again, nobody in PS4 in this particular league at the moment seems to be able to. And I suspect that if we get a dry race in Belgium, that will be a much tougher job for Schnitzel. But there's a long way to go. It only takes one mistake, especially on these white curbs you see around the track. And Schnitzel sets a fast lap race. And one of those white curbs, which don't have the sort of stripes, they're very tricky. If you go onto those, you can easily spin tyres. Now, Nardi Perez trying to take a wider line out of the final corner, as we get a terrible camera angle, trying to get close in. But one of the aspects of the battery management at this particular track is that you tend to you know, don't need to run too much in 2 3 and save it all for the main straight. And that's exactly what Fabi's doing perfectly, and that's what's making his defence even more comfortable for him, because he hasn't really defended it. Nali Perez probably realises now, after a few laps since his attempted overtake when he didn't get the job done, that may have been his best chance in this first stint. So he might have to think about maybe coming in for a pit stop, because in terms, if anyone pits earlier than any other car, there's not going to be any traffic problems because everyone's fairly close to each other. In terms of the gap to the leader, it's 22 seconds separating first to 14th. So in terms of a pit stop, well, Schnitzel basically has a pit stop in hand now on P14.
Yeah, you're probably talking around about, in game it's probably closer to about 18 seconds roughly from pit in to pit out. So it possibly save yourself a half a second or so if you really attack the entry as well, because that is basically turn 14 but just on the inside. But you've got to be careful, especially in these conditions. And these conditions as well, remember, none of these guys are, this is a no assists tier. There's no traction control, there's no ABS, there's none of that at all. It is all down to the driver, just like it would be in real life. And in these conditions especially, it's so easy to just a little bit too much brake pressure, just snatch the brake, lock up, head into the back of the other car, just up the inside and just miss the braking point. It's so easy to make a mistake, and with everybody so close together, it makes for much more opportunity for mistakes and to drop through the field very, very quickly. And that's why the drivers are being very tentative in making sure that what they're doing is absolutely spot on. As I say, from when we started, after the first couple of laps, the only move I've seen on track was Daniel Alves getting by Hugolf and Frosty getting overtaken by Casper after they made a small mistake, and that was it. There's one small mistake allowed the Alpha past on the McLaren, and it's just so hard here tonight to make any moves, and they're just having to wait until the right opportunity to try anything, and trying to find it in these conditions is just very, very difficult indeed.
Yes, and as it stands, Jim Roy will be heading back into the top 6 of the championship and taking a significant chunk out of Dave Frosty's advantage in terms of that top 5 position. So Jim Roy will be very pleased. Oh, and Lad McQueen goes very wide out of the end of sector 2. It wasn't too far away from the wall, but thankfully got it back on track. Lee Finney's dropped back just a little bit, out of a second now between P3 and 4. So at the moment, given Blizzard's penalty, Lad McQueen is on for a debut podium. So he's just got to keep it together, and the lap times continue to fall ever so slightly. 1:29 now, Material Schnitzel. In terms of his fastest time in that particular race, well, he is about 4, maybe 4.5 tenths faster than Jim Roy's best. So that probably gives you an idea of the pace advantage most laps that we're seeing so far. And Jim Nali Perez is still not able to get ahead. So at the moment, close battle looks like Save Frosty versus Casper. No, Casper still can't get past very much. Oh, and Casper goes very deep though in turn 1. Will that give Save Frosty any opportunity to go for a move? Let's keep an eye on this. Turn 2, no, not close enough. Tactician beginning to come back at the back end of the top 10, so maybe he's been tyre saving the last few laps just to ensure the tyres stretch out to that first pit stop. We're probably not too far away from pit stops now for the first instance. They may wish to stretch it out to around lap 18 to 20 as a 3-second time at the Daniel Alves, but he's outside the top 10, so that's not going to really have much effect on any battles at the moment. So we'll go back to the battle for P6. Jim Nardebres still can't get past his Haas. They call it Monaco about walls, and he picks up a 3-second time penalty just to add to his utter frustration he must have looking at the back of this Haas. It's a great advert for Jack Jones though, I have to say.
Definitely. So I do think we are getting close to the pit stop phase. There's a lot of cars out there just starting to get a little bit squirrely coming through some of the corners, just sliding a bit more than what they normally would do. La McQueen has been running wide at that turn 11 for about the last 4 or 5 laps now, just using all of the curb and then some. And Fabi's into pit lane, so the Haas is the first driver to come into the pits. It's obviously going to be a fresh set of intermediates, but he's had enough now. So Nardi Perez has finally been released from the back of that Haas, but he's picked up a penalty during that time, and it's taken 15 laps in the Haas going into pit lane for him to get through. But that's going to drop him to the back of the field now for Fabi. He's got a fresh set of intermediate tyres now to have a bit of an attack on, see if he can make up some ground. Maybe close the gap to the top 5 with maybe a bit of an undercut possibly if he can keep it on the track with some good pace. We'll need to see where this all balances out once the pit stop take effect.
He's got a lot of battery, he's been saving it very well, so he can certainly go on a really big attack in terms of an in lap if indeed he does come in at the end of this particular lap here to try and get ahead of that Haas, because you feel like if he's got this kind of pace, he may be able to get involved in the fight for the podium later on in this race. We've only got another 20 laps to go of this one, so this race may hot up later on. And a warm welcome to everyone who's watching at the moment. I think it's safe to say that this is not going to be a thriller like Brazil, at least at the moment, unless we get a safety car later on, but they're about as rare as a dodo at this point in the game's life. But we shall see as Lee Finley continues to just kind of bide his time, maybe hoping that La McQueen and Blizzard take each other out so he can sneak onto the podium. I'm not sure, because he has not quite got the pace of the two drivers. And speaking of which, they're both in. Renault of Blizzard and La McQueen into the pit lane for their one and only stop. So it's going to be a battle between the pit crews, Renault versus the Ferrari pit crew, and who's going to come out on top? Here we go then. Ferrari comes out, and it's going to be fairly... Oh, I thought he was going to go through him, but he didn't. And has Fabi had any sort of undercut? I mean, he was quite far behind them anyway, so it hasn't really had an effect. So La McQueen, can he get on the power, maybe try and sneak an overtake down the inside? It might be worth a go, but no, Blizzard is far too experienced to fall for any skullduggery like that. So it's P10, P11 for La McQueen and Blizzard respectively at the moment. So Nardi Perez carrying on. Be interested to see what kind of lap time he did last time around, and he'll probably think, well, I'll put in a few fast laps and then I'll come in for the pits and have fresher tyres to attack Fabi later on, if indeed that battle continues. So in terms of those who have pitted, we've still got 9 drivers to make a pit stop, but I think we're going to get a flurry of activity in the pit lane very shortly. Tyrrell Snitzel, we've barely seen him since the start of the race, where he really had to fight to defend his position, but he has the track all to himself virtually. We only just see Williams Jim Roy entering turn 12 behind him, and he carries on, and we all know that Snitzel has superb tyre management, so he'll go deep into the race.
Here goes Casper, up the inside for the Dutchman on the Ferrari. R2 made a small mistake out at turn 11, but he's managed to just about hold on to that one. He just got squirrely under the power coming out of 11, and the Alpha looked like he might have a go up the inside, but not able to do so. Now the Alfa Romeo's struggling. R2's into pit lane, as is the McLaren, which is a Stay Frosty. So pit lane action is happening. You mentioned Nardi Perez's lap time. His first lap after being released from the back of that Haas, 7 times quicker than anything else he's done during the race. I did say he had the pace in that car, he just needed to find a way through. He had 7 tenths at least in the bag, but these are now older tyres. They're not going to be doing too good at all. Fabi did seem to be a bit closer to the back of the likes of La McQueen and Blizzard in comparison to when he first made his pit stop, and Lee Finley's came in, and you can see now Fabi's 2.4 seconds behind the Toro Rosso. That gap was up at nearly 5 or 6 seconds before the pit stop phases, so the undercut has certainly helped Fabi to at least close the gap up to those guys up ahead, and he has now got a chance that maybe if he can close up a bit more and stay with them, they're getting a really good result.
Oh, and as you were just talking about La McQueen's progress, he just picks up a time penalty, so it's on as even. So at the moment, the net P3 will be going to Lee Finney, who doesn't have a time penalty at the moment. LR2 getting all out of shape out turn 2, which allowed Stay Frosty to close in on him, but not able to pass. Such a difficult track. I mean, you know, people often jokingly call this track Monaco without the rules, but it really is, because there's so little places to overtake. And in terms of how the circuit works, it's not too dissimilar, because you only have really one opportunity to overtake, and that is on the main straight, and then you often go side by side into turn 2. But apart from that, if no one makes a mistake, it is virtually impossible to overtake. But Jim Nardi Perez now in the pit lane, so this is going to be very interesting. Get the car slowed down. Where is he going to end up? Fabi is just coming through the end of sector 3, so will we see him flash by the Red Bull again? But I strongly suspect that Jim Nardi Perez will get out ahead of the Haas, but we're about to find out. Blitz is setting the fast lap of the race, so let's have a look at Fabi just on board of him. Will we see him getting ahead of that Red Bull?
Just going to get him. There
there you go. So a great job from Fabi to keep that going. Nardi Perez couldn't quite with the free space, and his heart will be sinking to that. Oh no, not again.
What's the Spanish for "oh bother"?
Well, I don't know many Spanish insults, but he'll be on the team radio saying, "Oh come on guys, we should have undercut him." But he will have fresher tyres at the end of the race, and don't forget, Fabi didn't make those tyres last as long as him, so he may be in a bit of trouble later on. So more flurry activity in the pit lane. Only the top 2 yet to stop in this race. A 7-second gap now between TRS Sizzle and Jim Roy. Jim Roy You know, he's a superb driver in his own right, but even he has no answer to Tyrrell Snitzel here today. As we look behind, and there's a whole gaggle of cars going through the chicane. Jim Roy pits, and he should come out ahead of Blizzard fairly comfortably, assuming he doesn't make a complete hash of his pit stop. Red Bull team usually known for their extremely quick work, as we saw yet again in the real life race today. So Save Frosty not having the best sector 2, dropping a little bit further back. Just going to have a look at Blizzard and La Maquina. There was a huge gap between the likes of Jim Roy and Blizzard, so I think, yeah, Roy will come out comfortably ahead, although Blizzard has cut the gap significantly, but he's nowhere near close enough. So any other battles going on? Nolly Perez, well, no, he's stuck behind the Haas, so it looks like I think we may get some action between Save Frosty getting a huge moment on the straight. I don't know if that was on purpose or whether he just spun up the tyres a little bit. A very unusual moment there, or trying to get out the spray perhaps, maybe cooling down his tyres, I'm not sure. Casper wasn't able to take advantage of whatever that was.
I think he caught the curb, and yeah, I think he was caught the curb on the exit possibly. Just lit the rears up, and it just kind of pointed him towards the pit wall. He's managed to collect it up, and Casper's not able to make a move there, but that's the kind of thing you don't want to be doing too much, because one of those moments will eventually cause a spin and therefore possible damage or terminal damage and put you out of the race. So Frosty getting away with that one this time round to still stay in P9. But yeah, the top two are far enough away. As the race leader TRL Schnitzel comes into pit lane lap 19, end of lap 19 before the race leader pits. He's the last driver to make a pit stop. He's going to come back out easily in the lead unless there's a major malfunction somewhere, and he'll still be in the lead of the race. Blizzard looking a bit more comfortable now on a fresher set of tyres, but he's still got La Maquina staying relatively close behind. Lee Finley's trying to close back up to them, and Fabi's still holding off Nardi Perez. And as we joked about, Nardi Perez will be sick of the sight of that Haas rear wing. He'll probably have nightmares about it tonight. Down there 6 and 7. Vartu still holding up in 8th position. So at the moment, Ferrari on for a double points paying position today. And I think that might even be their first of the season if they get to the end of the race.
It's maybe an opportunity for Nardi Perez. He's a bit close. He's going to go for it. He said, well, you know what? I've had enough of this. It's going to be slight wheel banging here for sure. But look at the traction Fabi gets. He'll have the inside for 2. And I think, yeah, Nardi Perez is going to be frustrated again. Can he go down the inside at 2? Yes, he will. More wheel banging. Completely fair, I think, from there, and Nardi Perez, I think, has finally squeezed through. Well, Fabi may have something to say about that on team radio, Roman Grosjean style. It was pretty aggressive from Nardi Perez, but I think he's just sick to death of seeing those Jack Jones advertisement for jeans right in front of him, and he has finally got ahead of that Haas. Up to P6 he goes, but he has got a 3-second time penalty. He's going to have to try and get away from Fabi, otherwise he will not maintain that position.
No, definitely not. And that, for me, although he's made the move, there's a little bit of a bump. I think it's just on the cusp of being legal, and in my opinion there, from what I've seen, but you could tell with the way he made that move just how much frustration he's had being stuck behind the newcomer through pretty much the entirety of this race. He's like, I need to get through, I need to make this move work, and he put it up the inside into 2. It was a brave move, because that could have ended in many tears and many different pieces of carbon fibre strewn across the track, but both of them lived to fight another day. And you'd imagine Nardi Perez should be able to just disappear now, because he has shown when he got released when Fabi pitted that he does have a good bit of time in his pocket in comparison to the Haas race pace wise, and he'll be trying to see if he can close up to the top 5. But as you say, he does have that penalty to deal with as well, and that will come back later on into the race when they cross the finish line. Could cost him some positions still.
Could well do. He's already got over a second on Fabi, so that just shows you how much pace. So I think as it balances out, I think Nardi Perez will be comfortably clear of Fabi by the end of the race. Unfortunately, though, that penalty will probably cost him any chance of a podium. Tyrrell Snitzel, I suspect, is about to smash the fastest lap that Williams Jim Roy just set. As we see LR2, Save Frosty and Casper continuing their fight for the lower positions of the top 10. Tactician, though, still in the fight, as it's Daniel Alves. We'll just have a quick look at Tyrrell Snitzel to see what he's up to.
He's 8 times up in Sector 2, for crying out loud.
Already there to the end of the lap. Lap 21 of this AOR F1 Hungarian Grand Prix. I think it's safe to say it's not going to live too long in the memory the way it's gone, but we've seen a few interesting incidents. And here we go, yeah, into the 28s goes Tyrrell Snitzel. Well, he's having a lovely Sunday evening once again. Win number 9, barring a catastrophic mistake on his part, which is very possible. He will be enjoying the champagne yet again. And well, the question is not really so much if he'll be the champion, but when he'll do it. I mean, in terms of the mass, given the gap to speed bar and he's not here, he could perhaps do it, maybe as early as Singapore, but we'll have to wait to see how the next couple of races turn out. He obviously can't do it today, of course. Even if it was a shorter season, he probably would have wrapped it up already. But Save Frosty on the back of LR2. And well, we could wax lyrical about Snitzel for the rest of the race, but we're going to concentrate on the midfield action, which has been pretty interesting. But I think, unfortunately, because of the wet conditions and everyone running pretty similar setups to handle these conditions, it has led to a lack of overtaking opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. As you say as well, even in a dry Hungaroring is a tricky place to overtake. It is mainly turn 1, turn 2, unless somebody makes a mistake or you just get a much better run. I think the only other place is down to turn 12, but you need to get an amazing run out of turn 11, and that's not the easiest thing to do in these conditions. So the conditions are definitely meaning it's a bit more of a subdued race here tonight in Hungary than what we normally have, because normally we have massive and phenomenal action all the way through the midfield, overtakes left, right and centre, but tonight the conditions are just hampering that, just dampening our spirits slightly. Doesn't mean the racing isn't good, there's still some good racing out there, they're doing extremely well. There's been no front wings, there's been only a few penalties handed out for corner cuts and warnings, so they're doing a fantastic job in these tricky conditions, but we're just not seeing the on-track stuff. And well, we sit in the commentary box because we're better at talking about it than driving. I know I certainly am better at that anyway. But these conditions are not easy, and especially with no assists, so they're doing a fantastic job out there today. But yeah, we would like to see a few more overtakes, but the drivers have got to think about what's best for them, of course.
Yes, well, let's talk about a few other drivers. Casper, he's had 4 podiums this season. Very inconsistent results he's getting. I mean, he was absolutely superb. One of the drives of the season, in my opinion, was his drive that he did in Monaco. Some of the moves from outside the top 10, unbelievable drive. And then, yeah, he's, you know, in the last 5 races, he's been all over the place, really. An 8th at Canada, a 6th at France, 4th at Austria, outside the points of Britain, and then he was superb at Germany to get onto the top 3 once again. So, what do you think is going on with Casper? It just doesn't seem to put the results in consistently. We know how quick he is.
Yeah, I mean, the good part that he's had is he's been consistently at least scoring some points in some bits, but we have been expecting, certainly when you use Monaco and, you know, Australia round number 1 as well, and when you use those kind of ones as like a case study, you would expect him to be up in the top 5 pretty much all the time. So there has been a few tricky races for him. He is still a youngster, he is still in his teens, and you know, he's definitely got the potential to move on and become a champion at some point in the future for sure, but just needs to find that little bit of extra consistency. He has got quite a lot of it, he does have a lot of pace, but to get right up there into the upper echelons, to get up to the likes of your TRL Schnitzels and your Michaels and people like that who are winning championships, you just need that bit extra, you need that extra 2-3% to get onto the podium week in, week out, and I think Casper is capable of doing that, but he still needs a wee bit of time to just nurture his talent slightly before he'll get to that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's mention Ferrari. Well, Lamborghini, he is comfortably beating his teammate in qualifying and on track, and he's on for at least 4th position, maybe 5th, but if he's going to get 4th place, he does need to overtake Blizzard on track. They have the same number of penalties, so Lee Finley sitting pretty at the moment. He is on course for a podium, which would be his best result so far this season by some distance, and that would possibly lift him into the top 10 of the championship as it stands, although we'll have to work out the maths on that one. But LR2 staying ahead of Save Frosty, Casper and Tactician, and Daniel Alves, quite a train. Hugh Golf has had by his standards, quite an uneventful race. He's usually in the thick of the action in the top 10, but today he's been nowhere, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's also got 6 seconds worth of time penalties as well. He's the only driver, I believe, who's got 2 3-second penalties out of the race. We obviously remember the fantastic race he done in Baku back at round number 4. He's had a couple of other points finishes, he's had a couple outside the points where he's been a little bit unlucky. As you see, he's usually in and amongst the thick of that midfield battle, but today in these tricky conditions he's just not able to find the grip in that racing point at the moment, and he's hoping that there's some penalties ahead to maybe jump him up. Obviously, if you look from R2 down to Hugh Golf, they're pretty much separated by about 2 seconds, so anyone with penalties up ahead could mean a quick change and a sneaky point or two come the end of the race. But I think the only one in amongst all of that might have a penalty might be Frosty. I don't know. I know Daniel Alves does for sure. Say Frosty might do, I don't know. I need to have a look in that. We'll wait to the end of the race, so it's a bit of a surprise. But yeah, we know he can do better than that, the Frenchman, and I'm sure he'll have some better performances later on in the season. I've been really impressed with La Maquina in the Ferrari. He's up there in 4th. He could possibly have a podium, although Lee Finlay with no penalties is starting to reel him and Blizzard in. But you know, a really, really good debut, and this might just be the shot in the arm that Ferrari need. 20 points up to this point during the season, and 18 of them have came from R2. You know, so they really needed someone to start bringing the points home, and it's been a very impressive debut from him, I must say.
Yeah, absolutely has been. Well, it looks like it's going to be still raining all the way through to the end of this race. And La Maquina was putting Blizzard under a little bit of pressure, but it's dropped now out of a second again, trying to recharge his battery, looking for a final assault. So Fabi's on the most laps on the Inter so far. It's on 11 laps on those. He was the first to pit for the second stint. So, but he's got a fair gap to LR2, and I think it's a similar case to when Nardi Perez was something. I think if, say, Frost and Casper could get ahead of R2, they could probably cruise up to the back of the Haas, but just not being able to get past them, overtaking. I'd say outside of the start, I don't think we've seen more than 10 overtakes as Jim Roy picks up a 3-second time penalty, which will be no threat for his second place unless he picks up a few more. Just as we said, Tittle picks up one too. So even the champion who has had a near perfect season can make mistakes sometimes, but he's still got a 9-second advantage, which will be maintained, of course, because Jim Roy, seconds before him, picks up a time penalty. So this, well, maybe he's trying some things, having a bit of fun out there, and taking a few, let's say, dodgy lines out there, because, well, he's got the whole track to himself virtually. Jim Roy, superb driver in his own right, but just unable to live with the pace of the reigning champion. As Blizzard, like La Maquina and Lee Finney, head through turn 13 for the end of their 27th lap, as Safe already picks up Sanford, which could cost him a position in the points, given how tight it is down there. Now, interestingly, as we talk about the battle for the podium, Nardi Perez is slowly closing the gap on these three, isn't he? He's suddenly beginning to find some really good pace in the final part of this race.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, because he has slowly creeped in. I mean, at the start of last lap, it was 2.5 seconds. He's taken half a second out of Lee Finlay just in that last lap alone. Obviously, he does have a 3-second time penalty, as does the Ferrari and the Renault. So Lee Finlay at the moment is still looking pretty for that first podium of the season, which would be a thoroughly deserved one in my opinion as well. Got a lot of time for Lee personally. I think he's a lovely guy, and that transition to the wheel is just getting better and better. So he's in good position at the moment, as long as he doesn't pick up any penalties. But Nardi Perez is starting to just roll along very, very nicely. It's just, the problem is, obviously, like we've seen with him earlier on with Fabi, it's just trying to find a way past here cleanly in these conditions around this track is not the easiest thing in the world. It is extremely difficult to do, but you see the pace he's got. He's taken about another half a second out of him already in this lap, going from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds just in the time that I've been talking. So he's taken half a second a lap out of those guys ahead at the moment, and he is really closing up. Fabi's still in 7th. He's dropped to 5 seconds off, nearly 6 seconds off in Nardi Perez. He's nearly 5 seconds clear of R2 and the rest. And, you know, it's a bit of a lonely race now for the Haas driver, but you know what? Another solid debut, showing some good pace. He could be one to keep an eye on at certain tracks. It's been really interesting for to see his and La Maquina's pace in the dry conditions, hopefully in the next race in Belgium, to see what they can really do in those conditions. But it's been another solid performance. I've been really impressed by both our debutants today.
Yeah, I mean, they can be very, very proud of their efforts so far if they finish where they are. So, you know, and as you say, it'll be very interesting to see what they can do in the races following this, because we don't really have a real impression of what their pace is in the dry, because obviously the qualifying session was, you know, slightly compromised by the... Oh, and my goodness, Stay Frosty's gone miles wide, and that may give Casper half a chance into turn 4. We only saw a flash of it, but I saw Stay Frosty go completely out of shot, so I knew he'd gone wide of that flat corner. Maybe starting to struggle a little bit for wear on those tyres. They've been racing so hard, but not, and behind, you know, these cars so closely following, and it's going to be affecting their fronts, especially. Stay Frosty now 1.2 seconds off LR2, so he's not going to get as much of a slipstream, so that may give Casper half an opportunity to finally get ahead of Stay Frosty, then take the fight to LR2 for P8.
Yeah, definitely so. Just pushed a little bit there and just dropping a wheel to the outside and running wide. But again, coming up to that turn 4, you need to be completely alongside and on the racing line if you want any chance of getting past another car before there, and Casper not able to do so. Nardi Perez has closed right up to the back of these guys now. He's within half a second almost. So we've now got, if we ignore penalties for a moment, we've got a 4-way scrap for P3 just now between Blizzard, La Maquina, Lee Finlay and Nardi Perez, Renault, Ferrari, Toro Rosso and Red Bull all fighting it out for the final podium position. Of course, when you do take penalties into it, that Toro Rosso is looking pretty at the moment with 6.5 laps still to go in this race. But it's going to be interesting to see who gets racy in these final laps. That Red Bull does look a lot quicker than the guys ahead at the moment as well, so it could be interesting as we get to the end of this race.
Yes. The problem is for Nardi Perez, he struggles so much to get ahead of Fabi. So, oh my goodness, what just happened there? I think Nardi Perez almost basically cut the chicane because he got very close to the back of the Toro Rosso of Lee Finlay, but I think he backed off. I think he realised that would be quite an illegal move if he had to try to do an overtake there. But that was a slightly scary moment, and Nardi Perez I think is certainly risking getting a second time penalty here as the battle for the third position begins to hot up, and again seems to have a bit more pace on the all over the back of the Toro Rosso once again. He did pit slightly later than the drivers ahead, but I'm not sure a lap of tyre wear is going to make that much difference. But can Nardi Perez get ahead of any of these drivers? Because if he could get ahead of all 3 of them, he would get at the very least 4th place, assuming Lee Finney doesn't get another time, any time penalty, which he doesn't have so far. But no change of position, so it looks like, if anything, Tactician is putting Casper under threat, so let's follow them. Tactician's had a pretty quiet race, but now he's going to, with Casper out a second behind, and going to go straight back because La Maquina has made some sort of error, and he has lost the position to Lee Finlay out the well, that must have gone on the power halfway towards turn 2, because they were certainly not making a move into turn 1, so La Maquina making a big error, and now he's down to P4. So Lee Finlay now will take the fight to try and take Blizzard on track for that 3rd position.
Yeah, unfortunately I didn't catch that one. I was having a look through some of the penalty situation for the likes of R2, Frosty, Casper and Tactician, just to get an idea of where they were at. But just noticing La Maquina, they're coming into the turn 5 just before the chicane, and that Ferrari's looking a little bit tail happy. I think the rears are starting to go off on that Scarlet machine. He's starting to really struggle out there now, and I think that's maybe what's happened. Just got on the power, just got a bit sideways, and that's just allowed the Toro Rosso to sneak through to come into these closing stages. Just the grip on the tyres and the tread wearing away, and the Ferrari making a small mistake, but that's pretty much the only mistake he's done. And you've got to think, these guys have been very close, but certainly La Maquina, Lee Finlay and Blizzard have been pretty much this far apart for the entirety of the race. Nardi Perez is closed up now, having finally managed to dispatch that Haas just after the pit stop phase. So does he fancy a look? I think if he's put more downforce on the car as you and I are expecting at the start of the race, because of the wet conditions, maybe it's just kept the tyres in better nick, because he's not scrubbing them along the ground as much, because the grip is there with the wings possibly. He's looking a lot healthier than that Ferrari. That Ferrari is getting really sideways in some places, and that he needs to be very careful he doesn't spin off.
And you have totally jinxed him, because he's just picked up another time penalty. He's now 6 seconds compared to the drivers ahead, and I think
Sorry, Nardi.
I think that kills any hope he has of a podium right there. He's still looking quick. Lamaquin, he's just got to, you feel like maybe this debut is starting to get to him a little bit because he looks all out of shape. This is probably the only part of the race where he's really looked uncomfortable. So he just needs to keep it together because he's still on for a really superb result. A top 5 finish. And oh my goodness, he went so wide again and nearly collected the wall. He's done that several times, but that was the closest one yet. Probably only 3 or 4 feet from the wall. He's got to be careful because it can end in one moment here. He's only got a few laps to go. And, you know, going hell for leather for these positions may not be the best course of action, and that may be the lack of experience coming into play here of racing at this top level of PS4 and AOR. But Lee Finley now giving chase to Blizzard for P3, but at the moment he has no time penalties compared to the 3 drivers who are around him, so he's on for a superb podium. It's a 12-second gap between the top 2, and Steve Frosty is trying to still get ahead of LR2. This train, this gaggle cars here has been pretty much together for the entire race since the chaotic start. But Lamaquina just needs a lap to sort of calm himself down, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the bit he's got to be careful of as well is, of course, although we've got the in-game stewards dictating warnings and track limits, etc., there is also our own AOR stewards that can look at things post-race, and someone may decide that he's abusing that and using that as his own racing line lap after lap, which is technically then track extension if someone wanted to look at it that way. So he needs to be careful, because if he keeps doing that too much, then someone might interpret him as trying to push the limits. There he goes again, all the way up to that curb, sometimes just a wee bit too much, and it depends on what you define as track limits. So he's got to be careful. He's obviously within the track limits within the game, because he would have picked up about enough penalties to end up back in Maranello probably if he'd carried on like that. So you've got to be careful though, because some people will interpret that as track extension, and I have seen it put in before. So he needs to be careful of that too.
You are correct. I mean, maybe those haven't been mistakes. Maybe that's the line he's been taken. But he's done it a lot of times during the course of this broadcast. So yeah, he may fall foul of the external stewards for that if anyone decides to insert that into the office. That's all a big moment for Lamaquina getting onto the power, but Nali Perez just wasn't close enough to take advantage because he still had enough speed to keep ahead of the Red Bull. But yeah, I just get the sense that Lamaquina is on the edge here in terms of his performance, and I just hope it doesn't. I hope he makes it to the end, because it'd be such a deserved result on his debut here. But you just get the sense he's not far away from making a mistake that would put him into the barriers.
Yeah, he's starting to get a bit leery on those tyres. As I say, I think the rears are completely shot in that Ferrari now. He's really starting to struggle. The car's sliding all over the place. He's certainly keeping some good speed though, because he's still right on the gearbox of Lee Finley up ahead. So despite everything, he is keeping it together. He is still able to go, but I'm riding on board. He's down to 4th, running that wide line that he does. But there's points where that car just looks extremely nervous. Hopefully it doesn't end up in the wall. He's only got 2 laps to go when they cross the line. Schnitzel's already started the penultimate lap, and he's just set another fastest lap of the race, a 1:28.4. The nearest to that is a 1:29.0 from Nardi Perez. 6 and a bit tenths is the difference between Schnitzel and anyone else in terms of fastest laps today. Unbelievable pace out front. We've not seen much of him, but he's been doing what Schnitzel does. He's been doing Schnitzel things.
Yes, penultimate lap then of this Hungarian Grand Prix on AOR F1 on PS4. It's not been a classic, but it's certainly been very intriguing, particularly the battle for the top 3, which will go all the way to the checkered flag. So that's certainly one we're going to be switching to immediately after we see Schnitzel, as we expect, to cross the line. And that's Blizzard, Lee Finley, Lamaquina and Nardi Perez all fighting for that final step on the podium. At the moment, Lee Finley has no time penalty, so he's in the box seat to take his first podium of the season, and his first since last season. Lee Finley under immense pressure from the Ferrari Lamaquina, who is driving on the rail, and he goes very deep into turn 7. He's going to have to cover him off, and that's going to give Blizzard some breathing space, and he'll be absolutely delighted with that. That was a rare error from Lee Finley in this race. Maybe getting a little sweaty on the tyres, and Lamaquina wants ride again, and I think that is certainly the evidence that he is doing that lap after lap as by design and not because of the mistake, because he seems to be gaining a bit of time there as Nardi Perez has to take avoiding action, going a bit too late on the brakes. He's nearly hitting the back of the Ferrari. Final lap then here at the Hungaroring. Williams Jim Roy in P2, a very, very lonely P2 has to be said. He nearly got ahead of Snitzel early on, and I think Nardi Perez is going to have half a chance here, get up into P5, but he has got 6 seconds of penalties. He's going to go for it. Last lap, he's got no more laps to do it. Oh, and Lamborghini goes very deep, but he will have the inside for the following corner. Who's got the better traction at the moment? Looks like Nardi Perez. Will Lamborghini come back at him? No, he will not. So Nardi Perez gets the move done superbly. Up to P5 he goes. I just want to keep an eye on Snitzel in a few moments, because he will be crossing the line in around 30 seconds time as they fly through turn 4 again. So Nardi Perez ahead at the moment. I think Lamborghini won't have anything left to use. But here is Tyrrell Snitzel then, heading through turn 12 for the final time. And, well, he's won 8 races so far this season. And Blizzards picks up another time penalty, so that may drop him further down here. Lamborghini may still get 4, but Tyrrell Snitzel rounds the final corner here at the Hungaroring, and he will take victory number 9 in the top tier of AOR as he continues on course to win his 2nd championship in dominating fashion, just as he has done here in the race. Williams Jim Roy on his return to AOR Tier 1, a superb 2nd place. Could do nothing about the race winner, but he will be delighted with that result nonetheless. But let's focus our attention now on the battle for P3. Blizzard picking up a penalty on the final lap. How's it going to affect the running order? I think Lee Finley is still going to get P3 in the end. Blizzard crosses the line on track in P3. Lee Finley will get the position as Blizzard's car hops into the air. That was somewhat amusing. And Lamborghini, fair play to him on his debut, a superb P4, and Fabi with P7 on his fellow debut. Blizzard seems to be absolutely furious at what's happened, because he has left the session in a hurry. But let's have a look then at Tyrrell Snitzel as he enjoys his cool down lap once again. The 9th time he has won this season. He's now won more races than anyone in this top tier since season 16 in total. An unbelievable season he is having. There's only really one driver in the top tiers I can think of in AOR who's having a campaign like this, and that is New Zealand Ryan over in Xbox Oceania, because Snitzel's campaign very similar. Punches the air in delight. And I said it last time, and I really worry for his health, because he's had so much champagne. Surely he's going to at some point have some sort of serious liver condition. But Tyrrell Snitzel on the top 7 of the podium again, joined by the Dutchman Jim Roy. And fair play to Lee Finley. His adjustment to the wheel continues apace. And yeah, give it a few more races and he may well be challenging the victories. But he can enjoy a podium, just like another Toro Rosso driver did in the real race earlier on. Not a race that will live too long in the memory, but certainly with some very notable results outside of the top 2.
Yeah, definitely so. Schnitzel, winner again, pole position, fastest lap into the mix as well. It's a grand slam from the defending and reigning champion. There he is, he wins the race. Williams Jim Roy picking up the podium, his first podium since round 9, the Japanese Grand Prix last year in season 17. Lee Finley with what I believe, I'm just trying to work my way through everything, that is his first ever Tier 1 podium there for Lee Finley. Didn't pick anything up. His best result before, I think I've seen, was 4th in season 17, so that's his first podium, so well done to him. No penalties doing that one. Lamborghini 4th place on his debut, good result for him. Blizzard in 5th, Nardi Perez 6th, Fabio on his debut in 7th as well. R2 in 8th, so it's a first double point score for Ferrari with 4th and 8th. Casper and Tactician 9th and 10th, and again that's just due to Frosty and Hugolf not having more penalties than those ahead of them, so they finish out the points. Frosty in 11th, Hugolf 12th, Daniel Alves with the biggest amount of penalties in the race, 9 seconds in 13th, and Alex rounds out the field in 14th. 14 starters, 14 finishers despite the tricky conditions, and I'm just working it out in front of me here. I think the biggest gainer was Lee Finley, 3 places, started in 6th, finished in 3rd, so he is the biggest gainer to what I can see quickly on the screen, so well done to him. And what is his debut and first ever Tier 1 podium?
Yes, and I think on that basis, I think Lee Finley will, given that he also didn't get any time penalties and drove a really calm and assured race there overall for the majority of the laps, he will get my driver of the day vote. What about you, Andy? Any, outside of him, is there anyone else who caught your eye?
I mean, the 2 debutants done very, very well. normally someone who gets a Grand Slam would normally be driver of the day, but yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think Lee deserves that. It's a much deserved podium. As I said during the stream, I've got a lot of time for him, not just because he's Scottish like me either. And it's it's a great thing to see as well, because his pace has been improving on the wheel, as I've mentioned numerous times, and to see that come to a podium, I hope that's just another shot of confidence in the arm for him, and we could see him up there fighting it out in the top half of the points from here on out.
Yes, and well, we're not, because of the late start today, we're not going to have any post-race interviews. They'll be back for Belgium next week. But speaking of which, let's have a brief word about Belgium. Obviously, Spa-Francorchamps, one of the true legendary circuits. It's been on the calendar for so many years in real life, seen some of the most iconic moments in the history of the sport. But rumours abound are that you're not actually going to be in the commentary box next week.
No, I'm not actually. I'm going to be missing next week. Anyone who knows of the band Hailstorm will know what I'm doing. I'm actually going to be at the SECC in Glasgow, seeing them next Sunday. So I'm going to come back with my ears bleeding, hopefully, from what will be a fantastic night. It's a shame I have to miss the Spa day, because nothing beats an F1 Spa day, in my opinion. It's one of the best tracks on the calendar. But I will be back for the following week when we head to the Temple of Speed, when we head to Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. But Spa next week should be a very interesting race. There's always the predictability, or unpredictability I should say, of rain in the air as well, always in the Ardennes Forest, so you just never know what to expect from that track. Longest track in the calendar. Do join next week, back at 7 o'clock. I might not be here. I don't know if you'll be going solo or not, Mark, but I hope people will join you for it and keep you company while I'm away listening to a lot of loud music, rather than being loud and shouting at the TV.
If there's one track I won't mind going solo for, it is Spa. One of those tracks where I obsessively know all the corner names, and well, it's also my favourite track on the calendar in real life and on the games. I always enjoy a wee drive around it. But a quick look at the calendar then. As Andy mentioned, we will be at the Temple Speed after Belgium next week, before we head off to Singapore, which could well be mathematically the earliest moment where Tyrrell Schnitzel can win the championship at the rate he's going. And then after that we've got Russia, Japan, and then before finishing off with an excellent triple American header of Mexico, USA and Brazil, before finishing off at Abu Dhabi in February next year. I cannot believe, Andy, how quickly this season is going. It's just insane.
No, it's flew by so quickly, even with the breaks for the real life Mexican and US Grand Prix and everything like that. It's just flew in so quickly. I mean, we've got Belgium next week, Italy, Singapore and Russia before the Christmas break, and then we've got that 5-week run from Japan all the way through to Abu Dhabi. We've got 4 fantastic tracks, and then we've got the Gasparino circuit.
Well, thank you once again, Andy, and that is it for our broadcast this evening, and we will see you next week at Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian Grand Prix.